Another workout done. So let's put my hair up again because it just fell out. I got tagged by Literary Me once again, and I thank you. These are really fun. I think you have some unique tags, by the way. I really like them. So this one is hurricanes, tornadoes, and blizzards. Oh my. Whew. Okay. 1. How do you think an extreme weather event such as a hurricane, tornado, or blizzard impacts the plot of a book? Ooh, I think that it sometimes makes you have a little more of a great emotion and a feeling of excitement and like survival and what's going to happen, because weather is unpredictable. So it makes us all go on the edge of our seats and like, will people survive? Will this be okay? Is everyone all right? This is number 2. Name a book you've enjoyed where some type of natural disaster or storm played a role in the story. This is going to be hard for me to figure out. I wish there were a way to like narrow things down. Natural disaster. Let me go to my favorites and see if there are any from that. I read so many things about genocide, but natural disasters, I don't know. I've had to have read something with like maybe tsunami or maybe floods. The first thing I could think of is The Long Winter, which is a Little House on the Prairie book. It's the one that comes to mind the most because they had 9 months or 8 months of winter, and it was one of the intense winters in history. And the second one that I could think of is Oshita Moore, who I have interacted with personally. I was on her podcast a couple times, but Shalom Sisters, she talks about how she lived in the area where Hurricane Katrina had been, but then she had like moved to Boston. She talked about going back down, trying to help out. Have you ever experienced a weather event that had a lasting impact on your life or was a memorable time in your life? Okay. Yes, so I have a few. I grew up in a flood zone in New Jersey. The river flows through my parents' backyard. It's really beautiful. I love it. They are high enough on a hill where they don't usually get their house flooded, but the other people around them do. So we had a lot of floods where, we saw houses completely flooded out with their furniture all having to be piled up in the town. I know this is odd, but I had a great time with Hurricane Floyd in 1999, September, when my brother and I, one of my brothers, we walked. My mom had been running out of milk and she was frantic because we were on our little island and she was like, I need milk and I don't have any. And so my brother and I, it was a beautiful day that September and we walked and the water was up to here on me, and I was 5'8" at the time, 5'9", but at the time I was 15, almost 16. So yeah, the water was up to here on me. We walked through the water and the river. We got to see everyone trying to help their houses. And there was this one area, a little store in the town that doesn't get flooded. They had a generator and we found milk and we got milk and then we carried it back. And my mom, she was napping at the time, so she didn't know we did it. And she was so mad when she woke up and said, take showers, you don't want to get worms. But I had a great time. It was so nice, even though the river is polluted. And yeah, it was a fun experience, as weird as that sounds. Otherwise, the Hurricane Sandy that hit, that wasn't that long ago. There was Irene. My mom had to be evacuated to where we live. She spent a few nights with us while my dad stayed back to protect the house from looters. That was the worst they got, but in our house, Hurricane Sandy, it was so bad in New Jersey. So many houses down the shore, they got ruined completely. And our house, the wind was just insane. We never had that for any hurricane. It's always been about floods, but this was wind, and the wind was so intense. So many people died from that hurricane in New Jersey. The winds were just so bad that a tree hit our house, was in our roof. So it wasn't too bad, but at the same time, my landlord was like, well, now I get to fix the roof. It needed it anyway. So he got insurance so he could fix our roof. But it was really cold. It was right around my birthday. People had lines for gas. It was in late October, early November that we had no electricity for 5 days, I think it was. And my older 2 boys were so small at that point. And so I had to keep them really warm. We had only candlelight for them at night and they were so scared. It was a bad time. That was probably the scariest one. I mean, it's not as bad as some of the floods that I've seen elsewhere, but it's like down in South Jersey was the worst. North Jersey was more about the winds. It was really a weird time. What I do like about these things is that all the neighbors come out and start talking to each other. Yeah, anyway, that's my experiences. What is your favorite type of book to curl up with while a storm is raging outside? Thriller, romance, memoir. Let me think, what did I read during Hurricane Sandy or something like that. Goodreads has a problem. It is saying that almost every single book that I read in 2012 was instead read in like June or July of 2016, which no way did I read all of those books in like a month. Back then, especially if I read only 70 books that whole year. Okay, so that was totally off of what it stated that I read when, but I was thinking a book that I read that year, and then I saw that I had the book listed for that year, and I'm pretty sure I read this book that time during that storm of Hurricane Sandy. So I'm going to say Safely Home by Randy Alcorn. I rated this 4 stars. It was a really good book. This is what my review was. This is an incredible story about 2 different men who were once roommates in college. Years later, their lives are nothing like the other thought it would be. They find one another. The American learns about what life in China for his friend is like. Although he believes China is progressing, all he learns are things that shock him and don't make sense. This is a book about the persecution that occurs throughout China today. It was extremely powerful and informational. It was very well researched and made me think of many of the stories I've read about the persecuted church in China. There was so much of God's word binding this whole book together. This is a Christian fiction story that I read. This book was written in 2001. When I say like today, remember I read this in 2012. So yeah, it's about Li Quan and his friend Ben. Li Quan has been practicing Christianity in a country where it is illegal. The whole point is that they want to see if they both pursued their same career idea choice. And it was a pretty large book. It was over 400 pages and it was very impactful, and I really loved this book. So I think I read this book during that time. Number 4, what is your favorite type of book to curl up with when a storm is raging outside? Thriller, romance, memoir? Like lately we've been having thunderstorms, but it's been like brief and like downpours, and I actually really love reading during that time. It's like really fun. I think I'd rather read something that's like more thrilling, maybe a psychological thriller or a cozy mystery. But when it's like snowfall, like a blizzard, you know I need to read some sort of seasonal book about like romance and Christmas time. So yeah, I guess it depends on the season. This is question 5. Name a book character you've enjoyed who had overcome or endured a weather-related hardship. Okay, so this has to be something like with snow, just because I feel like I've read a lot more about people being snowed in than anything. So let's go with that, because I can't think of any storms or people being like shut in together. The Snow Child, it's about this couple that moves to Alaska, and it's set in the 1920s, and she has like, the woman has major depression. And what happened was they had a stillborn, and the grief was just so deep for her. And it's been like 10 years that pass. They made, based off of an old Russian tale, Snowman, because this tale is that it's a snow child that could come to life. So they decided to like play around together, kind of to feel good at that time. So they build this snowman and the child comes to life. At least they find this little girl with like mittens and a coat. And so they just decide this story has become reality for us. And so they're close to their neighbors, and the neighbors are like learning about this little girl, but they're like, but we haven't heard of any girls in the neighborhood. The only thing that I remember about this book is that there were not quotes put for when the girl would talk. Like everyone else had quotes, but she didn't. And it's only when the girl is around that they, like for everyone, they don't put quotes, but when she's not around, they have quotes. That was like confusing. What I didn't like also in this is there was use of God's name in vain like 10 times. So that bothered me. But the rest of the story was just really beautiful. And yes, it's, you know, Alaska has a lot of snow. 6, if you were told to evacuate your home, which I have been told, which 3 books are in your go bag and why? So again, I don't really reread books. I just don't. I would probably bring my Bible so I can read for comfort. I guess I would have to choose like favorites, right? You're saying ones that I can't just, I would choose books that that I haven't read yet. So like right now, if I was told to evacuate, I would take the library book that I am reading right now. I'm in the middle of one, and then another that's on my summer TBR list. Otherwise, because I'm told to evacuate my home, why not Homesick that I'm going to read eventually? I mean, that's perfect, right? I'll be homesick because I want to be in the comfort of my home. Look at that. So I'll be reading this at some point. And in case you don't know what this is about, age 31, barely making the rent and homesick for the landscape of her childhood, Katrina Davies moves away from the city and into a tiny, dilapidated shed in Cornwall. As a child, she saw her family and their security torn apart. Now, on this battered granite peninsula, she slowly rebuilds the shed and, piece by piece, her own sense of self. This is the story of a personal housing crisis and a countrywide one, showing how it can trap us or set us free and what it means to feel at home. I think that would be perfect. Yeah, and the library books would just be because I need to read those before I have to bring them back. Granted, I took out 3 books this week and I'm already almost done with the second. So that's how it goes with how quickly I go to the library and read things. If you were writing a novel and had to use one of the following, hurricane, blizzard, tornado, and wildfire in a story, which do you choose and why? Well, I mean, I understand what it's like to live through the aftermaths of hurricanes and through hurricanes. Now, I know I'm not like in the South and Florida, so I don't know it like intensely like that, but I know it to a point, so I think it would be about that. For personal situations, I think that's best to write from. It's easier for me to research something that I know that I can elaborate on. Is there a book on your current TBR that features some type of inclement weather or natural disaster? And that's number 8. I have one. Oh my goodness. It took me a while to see through my list. I kept clicking on things, reading synopsises and going like, does this? When the Waters Came. This is the first of 6 disaster books. American disasters that transformed landscapes and multiple lives. These are historical Christian fiction books. So the first one is about a flood. So this one I could probably relate to. So this will be an interesting one for me to read. So yes, I do have one. All 6 books are out. Plan on reading all of those. Maybe you'll remember down the line when I get to it. And number 9 is tag some friends. So I'll try to do that. I need to get to know more people. I need to reach out a little bit more. I haven't had the time to go all throughout booktube lately. So hopefully I'll get a chance to do that so I could meet some more people and make more connections. So that way we could have a little bit of a variety of people to tag. Thank you again, Literary Me, for another great tag. Bye.